Hi everyone, and welcome to another candidates preview video. In this video, we'll be having a look at Alireza Firouzja. Alright, so he is originally from Iran, he's now representing France. He made the switch very recently. He's only 18 years old, and he weighs in with a life rating of 2793. He made his way to the candidates by being the winner of the 2021 FIDE Grand Swiss, and he's the third youngest candidate ever, only after Magnus Carlsen and Bobby Fischer. However, when Magnus was a candidate in 2017, the candidates tournament had 16 players. When Fischer played, it had 8 players, so you could argue that maybe he's the second youngest candidate ever. Also, he's the youngest player ever to cross 2800, so many people speculate that perhaps he could be the one to dethrone Magnus. He's made a lot of progress over the last year, so let's have a look at some of his games. Alright, so I've selected this game from the European Team Championship against Mustafa Yilmaz from Turkey. It was in this tournament that he crossed the 2800 barrier. The tournament before that he had qualified to the candidates in the FIDE Grand Swiss. But anyway, let's have a look. So he opened the game up with 1 e4, c5 by Yilmaz, knight f3, d6, d4, pawn takes, knight f6, knight c3, a6 by black. So we have the knight variation. He goes for bishop to e3, e5, knight b3, bishop e6, queen d2, and as you can already see, he is delaying this f3 move, which is, the standard move in the knight variation with bishop e3, but that gives him some options later on. So knight bd7, long castles, bishop e7, h3, b5, and now g4. So as we see, he delayed the move f3, he's all of a sudden going for g4. Perhaps his bishop can come out of g2, and he always has this f4 push, in one go. And here black probably should have castled, but Yilmaz played the move rook to c8. Now king to b1, knight b6, and g5. And already black has a tough decision to make, because if black goes knight fd7, then we can go f4. f5 is a threat. So Yilmaz went to h5 to control the square. Now came h4. And white already has quite a pleasant position. He can play on the d5 square or try going after this knight on h5. So Yilmaz played knight c4, forcing white to take here with the bishop and then recapture it with the rook. And now Alireza took full control over the d5 square with knight to d5. So black took. Here probably Alireza made a bit of an inaccuracy. It was probably better to take with the pawn. With the idea being that we want to go knight e5, hit this rook, and we've created this anchor square for the knight. So let's say the rook moves, we go knight to c6, and this knight is very difficult to push away. I mean, this knight on h5 is very misplaced, and white is a great position here. Anyway, Alireza took with the queen to c7, and now knight d2, pushing this rook back to c6. And normally, in the knight of you would think like, okay, white attacks on the king side, black tries to create counterplay on the queen side, but Alireza had another idea here. He played rook to c1, and after castles, he felt like, okay, the c4 push is probably premature here, so he played c3, g6, and rook to c2. So he wants to bring this other rook over first and then go for c4 and blast open the queen side. It's very difficult for black to do anything. Once again, this knight is really black's problem piece. So Yilmaz played rook to b8, rook hc1, and a5. So he wants to be able to meet c4 with b4 and keep everything closed. So Alireza had another idea, and this move is very surprising. He played the move b4. Now this is sort of against the rules that we are all taught, that usually you want to open up files towards the enemy king, and you want to keep files towards your king closed. But with b4, white invites the move pawn takes c4 and the opening of the a file. But as we see, white is pretty well prepared for it. He has a lot of pieces on the queen side. So instead of that, Yilmaz played rook to c8. Alright, so he was expecting, okay, maybe white can take on b5, or maybe move like knight b3, but Alireza came with another move that probably came as quite a bit of a shocker. He played a4. Wait, what? Like, is he really trying to rip open his entire queen side where his king is located? Well, if black takes here, we have to move b5, and all of a sudden this rook is trapped. That was Alireza's idea. So Yilmaz thought like, okay, let me take on b4 first. White cannot recapture, because then you hang your rook on c2, but he was in for a bit of a shocker. Alireza unleashed here. Queen takes c6. Black has to recapture, now pawn takes b4. And all of a sudden the queen is under attack. If the queen moves, you lose your rook. So Black's in a bit of a problem. Like, he cannot take an e4, that pawn is protected. So black had to take on c2, and now all of a sudden white has a great endgame with this queenside majority. The problem for black is if you take on c2 and take an a4, white goes b5, and you simply cannot stop this pawn properly. You'll probably have to end up giving up this bishop for this pawn, and white is winning in this endgame. So instead of that, Yilmaz played rook to b8, but now white gets a very strong protected passer. Once again, this rook still has the open c-file. The pawn can march all the way to a7, where it's protected by the bishop, and if white can also activate the knight, the game is just over. So knight f4 was played by Yilmaz, finally activating the knight. Alireza played rook c7, bishop d8, and rook d7, going after the d6 pawn. Knight to d3, going after the pawn on b4, a6, knight takes b4, a7, rook e8, and white captured the pawn on d6. Now all of a sudden, this knight is a little bit trapped if white would get in the move bishop c5. So Mustafa played bishop c7, rook d7, and knight a6 to defend. But now came rook d5. Black is going to lose this pawn. Rook's going to come here, and there's simply no way to get rid of this strong passed pawn on a7. So black played bishop a5, and after knight b3, he resigned. A great game by Alireza, and I would say it really showcases his strength. He is amazing in complicated positions. I would say that's really where he would be able to beat Magnus Carlsen. In slow positions, there's no one in the world who can beat Magnus, but in these complications, Alireza, I think, is capable of doing it. But I would say Alireza's biggest challenge for the candidates will be opening preparation. I feel like the other players, they have, their teams of seconds already for years and years. Alireza, once again, he's still kind of inexperienced. That could also be a factor. But I think especially the opening preparation, that will be his biggest challenge. But with all that being said, let's have a very quick look at his pairings. So in the first couple of rounds, he is playing Radjabov with the black pieces. I wouldn't say that's too scary of a pairing for him. And then he plays Rapport with the black piece. So he starts with a double black, but I wouldn't say it's the two worst black games. Of course, Rapport can be pretty dangerous. Then he will play Hikaru, really a game that can go either way. And then he's playing Nepo with the black pieces. And then in round 5, he's playing Duda. So he'll have quite a bit of blacks in the beginning. I think if he will manage to do well in those games, he gives himself a great chance, given the fact that, he will have more whites towards the end. But with that being said, let's move on and have a look at Alireza's chance to win. I predict that Alireza Firouzja has a 17% chance to win the candidates and face Magnus Carlsen in a World Chess Championship match. Is really a match that many of us are hoping for. Magnus has said that if anyone else but Alireza wins the candidates, then he's simply not going to play. We will see if that is true. I personally don't believe it, but it would be very exciting if he were to play Alireza. Also keep in mind that World Championship match would be 1 year from now in 2023. Alireza will be 1 year older and stronger, so he would have even better chances of winning that match. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one, in which we will be having a look at Ding Liren.